In any investigation, there's a moment when the timeline ends and the questions begin. A moment where the certainty of events gives way to the uncertainty of interpretation. That's the moment we reached at the end of Part 2, the night, the note, and the early hours of December 26th, 1996. We walk through the facts as they were documented. But facts alone don't solve cases. People do. Motives do. Patterns do. So before we move into Part 3 of the JonBenét Ramsey series, our deep dive on suspects and theories, I want to pause and explore something essential. What do investigators agree on? What do they disagree on? And why does this case fracture so sharply the moment we step beyond the physical evidence? This is the Midnight Mystery Archive, and this is a short bridge episode, what we know and what we think we know. One of the most remarkable and infamous aspects of the JonBenét Ramsey investigation is how quickly it split into two camps. And the split didn't come from the media. It came from inside the investigation itself. According to journalist Lawrence Schiller in Perfect Murder, Perfect Town, the Boulder Police Department was divided almost immediately. Some detectives believed the crime scene showed signs of staging. Others believed the evidence pointed outward, toward an unknown intruder. Meanwhile, the district attorney's office leaned heavily toward the intruder theory, creating a tension that would define the entire case. So when people ask, why is this case still unsolved? The answer begins right there, in a fundamental disagreement about how to interpret the same set of facts. Despite decades of debate, there are areas where nearly all investigators, including those featured in the CBS analysis, A&E documentaries, and even early Boulder PD reports agree. 1. The ransom note is unusual. Its length, tone, and composition don't match typical kidnapping cases. FBI profiles referenced in multiple sources note that long, detailed notes are rare and often signal staging or emotional involvement. The crime scene was compromised. Schiller, Steve Thomas, and nearly every documentary confirm that dozens of people entered the home before it was fully secured. This means some physical evidence is now permanently unreliable. 3. The head wound and strangulation present a conflicting sequence. Forensic experts disagree on which came first, but all agree the injuries reflect more than a simple assault. 4. No clear motive has ever been established for anyone. This may be the most significant point of consensus. No theory has ever produced a complete and coherent motive that fits every piece of the evidence. And now we cross the line. This is where the case fractures. Theories diverge because the clues diverge. One is the DNA. According to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation and Biotechnology, unidentified male DNA was found on JonBenét's clothing. EA Mary Lacey used this to publicly exonerate the Ramseys. But in the CBS 2016 forensic panel, experts argued that the sample was too small, too degraded, and too inconsistent to be conclusive. What do we have? The same evidence and two radically different interpretations. Then there's the ransom note. Some handwriting experts said Patsy Ramsey could not be ruled out. Others said she likely didn't write it. Still others said no one could make a conclusive determination at all. 3. The window. Crime scene experts interviewed in A&E's hunting JonBenet's killer believed the cobwebs and dust patterns suggested no human entry. But the unlocked doors, reported in police interviews, suggest the intruder didn't need the window at all. 4. Behavioral analysis. Steve Thomas interpreted the Ramseys' behavior as suspicious. Other officers and trauma experts interviewed on CNN believed their reactions were consistent with shock and grief. In other words, this case doesn't have one narrative. It has two parallel narratives built from the same set of evidence. In part 2, we walk through the timeline, what happened. But part 3 is where the real complexity begins, because that's where we confront the family's actions, the intruder theories, the handwriting analysis, the DNA interpretations, the psychological profiles, and the investigators' own disagreements. Part 3 is not just about the suspects. It's about how those suspects came to be, how evidence became theory, and how theory becomes belief. And most importantly, it's about why no theory explains everything, and why every theory explains something. One thing I ask of all the listeners who I appreciate so much is, if you can, take the time to please go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get the podcast, and leave me a rating. It helps in the algorithm, it helps bring new listeners to the show, and it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for doing it. Now, join me this Friday for part 3, Suspects and Theories, the episode where we step out of the timeline and into the maze. This has been the Midnight Mystery Archive and our part 2 mini episode. We'll see you on Friday.